Hey class, this week I wanted to guide you through how to take the character through a walk cycle, posing its feet, um, adjusting the center of gravity to bend the knees and put the character in a more neutral position. So the very first thing that you're going to do is you're going to open Blender, and then from the previous character rig that you download, you're going to select the character rig again. Got to adjust some of these screens in the liner node area. What you're going to do is you're going to go to General, you're going to go to Layout. It's going to open up a layout screen for you to have some of these options available to you. You're going to have document properties available. You're also going to have the outliner available. This document properties is going to allow you to see certain bones that you select. So from this point, we want to hit the plus sign using Control and the hotkey plus on your keyboard. You're going to be able to zoom in, use Move to click on it and drag the character into position. Per the instructions, one of the things that you wanted to do is currently when we're in perspective mode, you want to switch to orthographic mode. Also use the gizmo and select the red x-axis or the equivalent of number pad 3 as outlined in the instructions. It's going to move you to a side view. Again, you're going to position the character using Control and plus. You can zoom in. The very first thing that the instructions ask you to do is to use this center controller bone, which is this star-shaped bone here. And by clicking on that, that's going to allow you to move the character downward and cause the knees to initially bend. Okay, so with that selected and clicking on this bone properties, I can see COG controller. This another name for this is center of gravity controller. So using center of gravity, clicking over here for move, I can now bend my character's knees into a slightly more neutral position. Additionally, in the instructions, it wants me to adjust the rotation of the head slightly downward. So I'm going to do that. And then by rotating slightly, I noticed that by moving the head downward, the eyes actually tracked up. So in perspective view, I'm going to click on the eyeballs and I'm going to drag them to a more neutral position. Then I'm going to return to orthographic, click X or num3 to return to side view, and then click away. The next thing that I need to do to set this up is down here on the timeline, I need to click on this line and pull it up slightly, but not so far that I block the view of the feet. On the timeline, current frame should be set to 1. For this, I'm going to set the end frame. I'm going to set the end frame at 10, and you'll see what that's all about in just a second. Okay, so at this point, they were instructing to set keyframes. Click that blue button to select automatic keyframes. This red line, if I click on it, you notice that it is the corresponding left foot controller. That's the one we want to be on. I'm going to control and move this left foot now by using that controller bone by pressing G for grab on the keyboard, followed by Y to constrain it to the Y axis. Now I'm able to slide that foot forward. If you notice, if I go beyond full extension, the toe goes down. So I'm not going to go quite that far. I'm just going to go right to the point where it's fully extended. And then I'm going to left click. And if you notice right down here, it set a keyframe. So that's my first position. While I have that selected, I'm going to click on R and I'm going to raise the toe to approximately that green line, somewhere in that range. And then again, left click. Remember that if you don't move the current frame position, whatever movement or values that you've assigned on the X, Y, and Z axes, they're going to be applied to the keyframe and overwrite it. So that's fine. So in essence, this position will overwrite on keyframe 1. Likewise, if I move to frame 10, and this is very similar to what we did when we were working with keyframes on the sphere. So on frame 10, one thing that I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to click away, click on this foot again, hit R, rotate. I'm going to bring this foot back down to a more neutral position, somewhere in there. Then I'm going to press G and Y to constrain that foot movement again on the Y axis. I'm going to drag the foot back to roughly that position where the toe is just behind, and I'm going to right click, and that sets that keyframe. So if I use these diamond arrows, I can jump back and forth between the primary starting and ending keyframes for that foot. Likewise, if I grab the playhead, I can see the entire range of motion that I've just set in terms of the left foot keyframing. Okay, so perfect. Likewise, I'm going to need to do that. Likewise, I'm going to need to do that for the right foot. And so I'm going to want to click back here, make sure that I click away and that I truly am on the right foot controller. I still don't have access to that yet. There you go. Right foot controller. Always confirm up here that you're clicking on the right controller bone or the correct controller bone. Okay, so to set the initial keyframe for this position, again, G to grab, Y on the keyboard to constrain that axis. This one is going to be roughly in that position. Again, this is the right foot. I'm going to right click to set that keyframe. I'm going to click away, re-click on it, make sure that I'm still on the correct controller. This time, G to grab, Y to constrain on that axis. And now I'm moving it forward to roughly this position. Sorry, I made a mistake here. I need to be on frame 10. Again, G and Y. All right, set those other keyframes, and now I'm going to rotate the character on the Y-axis to return to that initial position. Click away. I've also set the start and end frame ranges. So it's 10 frames, and then the keyframes should be set. And you can only see the keyframes if you click on the actual foot controller. So this is the right foot controller. This is the left foot controller. Okay, so now we can preview those frames. You can see the walk motion. And that's pretty much all there is to setting this up. We'll refine this movement a little bit later, but you can pretty much see how now the character, could be walking along, and we'll ultimately slide the movement forward in subsequent lessons. But you can see how it's perpetually just looping because of the start and end frame. So hopefully that's helpful, and we'll be talking to you soon.